So cross-border inter-scheme transfer from Rafiki to VNext switch. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. Let me just be very quick on the beginning so that you hear what you've heard a couple of years now, but we need to have everyone in the same mind frame for us to go into new things. So this project was initiated by the Mexican Association of Social Sector Credit Unions. What they do is they go to communities, they speak to leaders of those communities, indigenous leaders, local co-ops that are moving things locally, and they propose to them organizing a bank, preparing their own bank. And when they do that, communities get their own community-owned bank, which allows people to have savings and credits locally. It is led by Isabel Cruz, an indigenous leader from the south of Mexico, from Oaxaca in particular. What you have here now is a small community bank. It's one community bank, such as this one, right? This one, for instance, is in San Pablito, in high region in Puebla, where they do very wonderful art crafts. And it's almost like a little store, as you can see, right? There's no much magic behind it, except that it's really working with indigenous communities that normally are never concerned by national banking services. This is an image of regions which have the most populated saving co-ops and community banks in general, not only AMUX ones, right? In the center of Mexico, very interestingly, you have the largest networks. And here is one family which benefits from this service. It all remains in the context of one little single small bank. This is a MOOCs network, 140 community banks all around the country, making great work, but there is an issue. And the issue is this: if we take these three community banks, there's an invisible circle around them because they are not interconnected. They work just as little stores. They work by themselves in an isolated fashion. Of course, AMUX is there to support them, and they give them technical advice, legal advice, technological advice, but it's not enough for them to be financially interconnected. They don't have a common payment system, so they cannot work together, and what's even worse, they cannot get remittances. Or if they do it in the only way where we can always get remittances when things are not working, technologically speaking, is we get cash. We move cash. Now, this seems okay, right? As long as they get the money. But the problem when we think of remittances and cash is that there is an issue that we do not often mention. And it's amazing how ignored it is and true at the same time if you start thinking about it. So if you think of a community that receives lots of cash, lots of remittances, you would say they probably thrive. But for a reason, when we were visiting the center of Mexico to make new community banks, I realized that in many of those places, the regions which received the most remittances were the poorest ones, were the ones which were empty, where only the elder ones were living because first the young man left, then the young woman, then they took the children, and finally only the elder left there, stayed there. So I didn't understand why. That's paradoxical, right? So we started making an analysis, and we realized that whenever there are remittances, the first thing you see is inequality. That didn't exist before between those who receive remittances and those who don't. There's inflation because the spending, that's a whole thesis which is based on a macroeconomic principle which is called Dutch thesis. We won't get into details, but basically what it says is because there is no production supporting that quantity of capital, that liquidity, that incoming liquidity, in fact, instead of bringing well-being, it's going to provoke inflation. And what inflation causes at the regional level is that this region becomes less competitive because it's more expensive, because land is more expensive, because workforce is more expensive. So what ends up happening is that this region becomes more dependent. And when it becomes more dependent, you have a funny phenomenon. You have more migration. So you could even say that the best thing that happens to these communities in the long term could be their worst. So our idea is very simple. We have the network of community banks. There's the leadership. There's the communities totally involved. We need to get the technology to them that will make things different. But how? Basically, very simple principle, if we can manage to have account deposited remittances directly into those community banks, and I say community banks in parentheses, because it's not a national bank. HSBC, very nice, but it will never invest in those communities. So we need community banks actually doing this work. What happens? You have equality. Why? Because the community bank will lend to everyone, and not only to those who receive remittances, of course. It lends to the best projects. It invests in productive projects, sustainable projects. That also means less inflation, both because these projects help to do that, but also because when money goes into accounts, the spending of that money is tempered, as we all know. Or at least it should. No, it is. So that creates less inflation. It doesn't stop inflation, though. It just tempers it. And that means more productive projects and more work locally. So in the end, what we have is less migration. So when politicians around the world speak of attacking the root causes of migration, they should stop spending trillions in building an infrastructure that will create work that will never be sustainable in the long term, and spend 5% of that money building financial infrastructure that belongs to the people and using open source technology that allows those entities, that financial infrastructure, to benefit from remittances, and everything will happen by the people and through the people. You don't need to invest more than that. We just got to tell them. And now this is a curious image. It's the last, let's say, theoretical part I'm going to mention. Here you have 2013 and 2023, 3 examples, right? 3 countries that migrate quite a lot: Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala. If you go all the way to the right, that's maybe the important graph, you have percentages, right? Those are billions of US dollars. So look how much has remittances been growing and how much has foreign direct investment been growing. Isn't it crazy that remittances are growing at that level, and the impact and the power that is in them? But it's not happening because we haven't realized this very simple principle I'm trying to tell you. So that's where PCH comes in. People's Clearinghouse is nothing else than a gateway for interconnecting community banks between them and with international financial systems that want to provide those remittances at low cost and in an efficient way. But then the question comes in, which technology can produce this change of paradigm? And there's where we had lots of problem thinking, what are we going to do? And so we thought, very simple. We need a user to be able to use a cross-border system, which will speak to the community bank, which will then speak to a user. Sounds simple. But finding a cross-border transfer system that works for our use case isn't that simple. We needed to innovate. We could not simply use Western Union and just outsource our processes to any MTO that is doing everything business as usual. So what could be done? And that's where we found Rafiki. Jason.
Thank you, Roberto. All right, so so before we get to Rafiki, we need a very strong protocol that could deal with cross-country, cross-currency payments. And I think with the ILP, we've got exactly that. But having only that is one part of the picture. We still need an ecosystem in which we can make it easy for adopters to use and take full advantage of what the ILP has to offer. Via Rafiki, we're able to do that with the ASC capabilities and GraphQL and webhooks. We can take full advantage of integrating not only existing payment solutions, but also new ones coming in the future. So ILP takes advantage of the wallet addresses in order to have a universal routing mechanism and from phone numbers to any future type of payment methods or routing methods. Also, we have a seamless mechanism for creating the receiving wallet addresses as incoming payments are being received, with also the ability to block incoming payments and keeping state on those wallets. And then, very importantly, the ILP gives us already a very secure way, tamper-proof mechanism of sending those transfers cross-border, with also fault time locking built into the core. So, in essence, we've got the technology to achieve all of this, and it is a perfect fit. But that's one half of the picture. We still need to have a thriving community in order to achieve all those goals, which is why the ILF community is a perfect fit to make sure that right now and going forward, it'll be a very sustainable ecosystem. As we learned from the hackathon earlier, you can integrate into the stack within a matter of hours and be part of the global community. And then, very importantly, the standards being open means that it's available for everyone to access, as well as the license which allows you to use, modify, and distribute the software freely.
And so with the help of people like Jason and people like Max, people like Alex at the ILF community, we have been able to see how powerful this use case is for us and in general, but we are trying to demonstrate it in our case. But now, it makes more sense. So we are not simply using an anonymous generic system, right, that doesn't exist. We're using Rafiki, which means we're using a protocol that allows us to interconnect with different systems implementing Rafiki around the world. The complexity of it is something we might be discussing later, but now we know this is working. But then we realized, yeah, sure, but are you gonna, Rafiki, MX, and community banks, is it one by one? Are you implementing 140 Rafikis? How is it gonna work? And we thought, let's be efficient. Rafiki is thought for complex transactions that might involve cross-currency, that might involve different circumscriptions, right? Let's use it for cross-border remittances. And let's use a switch that is meant for local, very simple transactions for community banks. So we thought, where could we find a software that is secure, that is efficient, that is easy to integrate with? And there we stopped the project, we were crying, and then we found Mojaloop vNext, which is a very interesting project. Pedro, can you tell us more about it?
Yes, Roberto, it sounds like you're asking for a Christmas list, right? So you wanted secure, fast, cheap, easy to integrate, pretty much everything. So fortunately, we've been working on the next generation Mojaloop switch, as you all know, which provides all of that. It is efficient, and it doesn't depend on any cloud infrastructure, so we can actually deploy it anywhere. We've tried it in local systems, we've tried it in Amazon, we've tried it in GCP, we've tried it in a Raspberry Pi. It fits the Raspberry Pi. And obviously, you don't want to be running a payment system in a Raspberry Pi, you shouldn't, but you can, so you can test it. And the point of this exercise is just to show you that it is really efficient. It's really small, and it actually runs. It does horizontal scaling, and this is an important perspective. So horizontal scaling allows us to get one thing really well, which is the price is adjusted to the demand. We can have a system that is really cheap when we start. We don't have to invest a lot of money. And as we grow more, as we have more demand on the system, we just put more resources. We put more computing nodes and more disks and more network. And everything scales out horizontally, almost linearly, apologies, meeting the demand. So what it means is that we still have a very efficient system. Because when we have more demand, we can actually have more performance, and we can handle that capacity, that demand, with proper capacity. It also has abstractions for all external components. This is a technicality, but it's an important one. As you all know, we live in an open source world where licenses change every now and then. They shouldn't, but they change every now and then, which means that there's some technology that we are using that suddenly goes away. We cannot use that technology. And by having abstractions everywhere that we connect to a database, to a network, to a queuing system, to anything, we have the benefit of changing those things pretty quickly without changing our valuable code. So that's the point of the abstractions. How about security? Most systems have been designed to work inside a walled garden. It's the way it is. It's usually legacy applications were executed inside a corporate network, which was protected by default. Well, we know that actually 90% or 80% of the attacks on systems come from the inside. And I'm not saying that they come from the people that work inside. It's usually someone that is either working from the inside, worst case scenario, or someone that is working from the outside that gains access to an inside account, and then it reaches an open ecosystem where everything is open and free for all. So what we have in Mojaloop vNext is it is secure from inception. It was designed to deliver security from the beginning. We have a zero trust implementation logic or approach. And what does this mean? It's not just connections that come from the outside to the inside that are authenticated or authorized. Everything is authentication and authorized. We have multiple systems inside the system that talk to each other constantly, and those conversations, they are authenticated, they are authorized, and they are using role-based authentication. authorization, sorry. And this also has a benefit, which is we can now provide a secure administration UI and a nice layer for the operators, which is authenticable, or I don't know if this is a word even, but you can authenticate against it, and you have fine-grained security controls with authorization for anyone that wants to use the system, and they only have access to what they are allowed to do, which is an important aspect. And then at the end, we are using JWTs and certificate-based authentication, as we should, in different cases where we need to use them. It is easy to integrate with, and this is an important point. I think Roberto stressed it a lot during the beginning, but this is really important. It is really difficult to have a conversation with someone that's trying to integrate with a system that is not flexible. And this is a problem, because essentially we are imposing a lot on that system. And if the system is not capable of integrating directly with our system, then what we need to do is provide something so that they can integrate with our system. And that's what we want to do. We don't want this to stop because someone at the local community site has no ability, no skills, or no money to do a proper integration, which is a hard thing to do. So what we did was we created a gRPC-based synchronous connection and service so that everyone can talk to the system in a very easy manner. And we're shipping TypeScript, C# and Java client so that anyone in the most typical environments and the most typical core banking systems can talk to our switch very efficiently. So all they have to do is implement a client library, and that client library pretty much does everything that it needs to do. Lookups, lookup participant, transfers, quotes, everything they need to do. It's done for them. Complexity, we take care of it. It's a flexible model with optional quotes. A lot of the feedback that we got is that we might not need quotes in some parts of the system. We operate with fixed fees. So again, the problem is efficiency. You might be saying, but we need the quote for the guarantee. Yes, that's true, but when we're working with a fixed system where the fees are fixed and no one can change them without renegotiation, it's basically pointless. Why are we sending messages back and forth to get the quote that we know what we're going to get? So we don't need that quote. And at the end, something that is probably not very important or it doesn't sound like a very important thing except for technicians and maybe product managers. The code base needs to be easy to change. We all do this where we deliver a product and it's working great and everyone is super happy. And then we think we're not going to have any changes, right? No one's going to ask for more features. It's wrong. Always, you're going to get requests for more features. So one of the things that we need to do before we go to production is we need to accommodate the future needs, and those will come. A successful product needs to be able to change, because if it's not changing, it's not being successful. So it's as simple as that. We technicians need to deliver that.
Wow. So we have a switch, and that sounds good. We have a cross-border transfer system, and that sounds good too. But it's not that simple, because how are we going to make them speak? They both work in a way that goes from routing to quoting to the actual transfer or registering of obligations, right? Which, as we all know, is independent from the settlement system that we would be using. But they still do not speak of it, do not speak the same language in the same way, in the same timing. So our solution, we thought, is we need to translate these cross-border transfers and convert them into switch transfers. So for that, we created the CNP. The CNP is an acronym for Cross-Network Provider. It's a term we took from the Mojaloop community because it very clearly and very transparently explains what we're doing. We are cross-bordering, cross-networking, right? Yeah. A payment. So without going into any details, just to give one simple example, right? So we had to manage this, and this was months of discussions with the Interledger community. So routing, until where should we go? Because it's two different transfer systems. It's not like having an end-to-end process. So we need them to be accommodated and coordinated in a way that if one fails, the other one will fail. If one doesn't work for a reason, the other one has to be informed of that, right? Otherwise, we're getting into many, many problems when we need to reconcile and settle. So basically, just to give a simple example of that process, the ILP routing, as you know, we're using for Rafiki, or you should all know, payment pointers, right? So here we have an HTTP address which corresponds to the payment pointer, right? The person is that one. Well, we said, let's use phone numbers, right? So you take the last part of the phone number, right? 915, that's the code of Oaxaca. And then you transform it into a scheme-based alias, so you can route to the correct place. But now, there's another issue, because Rafiki works with wallets, while what we're doing here is with parties that belong to a certain participant, right? So one is participant and then the party. The other one is directly wallet accounts or wallet addresses. So how are we going to frame that? So we're using Rafiki in a very interesting way. What it does, the system, okay, is it comes by routing from the Rafiki US entity to the Rafiki Mexico. And here it asks the question, do you have this phone number? That's a CNP in the middle, let's say, right? Do you have that phone number in your database? And if it has it, and it's recent, okay, it will proceed and do the transfer. But if it's not recent enough, or it isn't there, it will not just reject the transfer. It will go and ask the Oracle in Mojaloop, hey guys, is there a bank that has this phone number? Someone might say, yeah, we have it here. So it will go to that community bank and say, okay, the Oracle told me you have that phone number. Is it true? If it's true, and it's not only a lookup, it also validates that the account is valid and can receive funds at that moment. That's important, right? So we added that feature. It goes back and then tells you the CNP, yes, there's a bank that has it. It's this bank, this is the account. So then the CNP will automatically request Rafiki, which is made for that, to create a wallet address for that phone number. So there's no human intervening in that process. It seems very smooth. It makes sense, right? Now, this is a more complete scheme. I won't go into details, but out of the meeting, we can discuss it. It's very interesting. There's a lot of discussion behind.
I can make it bigger.
Can we?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay. So, as you can see, the Rafiki, CNP, Switch, Community Bank, but once again, all this is theory. This is what we should be doing. Other features that are important: fees, reports, liquidity management, visualization of operations, right? This needs to be visible. So, what if something happens in the Rafiki side that is not being shown on the Mojaloop side, or vice versa? We need an entity which takes both parties' data and shows it to the operator. And what's even better, in the AMUX network, we have a money transmitter that is perfect for that. That is working right now, but it's only doing cash. And as we know right now, that's not what we want to do. So we can use the money transmitter, adapt those processes, include those elements that are very important, and then we would have a really workable product. So I would end up, this is the architecture that we found for the CNP, right? Including the Rafiki side. Okay. In the end, this would be, let's say, now the process as it should be. Rafiki, the CNP, the VNex switch, the community bank, the users, everyone's happy, it seems to work, and we're making all we can to show it to you soon. So, well, thank you all for coming.
I'm sorry, I think there is a little bit of miscommunication.
What's going on? Oh, okay. So I'm being told by the ILF, the Interledger Foundation, that we cannot stop. We have to do a demo. Guys,
That's not
what do you think?
a demo.
I mean, something quickly that we could, Mexican way, Mexican style.
Right, maybe we can.
Okay. Okay, give us a second. We'll see what we can do. Don't go away. Don't worry.
Yes. So now you're going to dance a bit for them while we get
Okay. I need a hat. Somebody has a Mexican hat? No.
Where is that?
It's a joke. Mexicans don't necessarily wear hats. I mean, many do. Okay, so, okay. Let's show it working, guys. What we just mentioned. Let's show a transfer that really works. Can we do that? So what you're seeing here is an Interledger wallet. The Interledger wallet, in fact, you can all have your accounts. You could all even try doing what we're doing. So Abelitro, that's Jose Abel, part of PCH team, who's initiating a transfer. As you're seeing, We have the phone number in the end, right? Put an amount. We have an FX. Can we add a description, maybe? Nice demo. Okay, let's wait before we... Okay, can we... Okay, so... We're sending 50 to Diser Hassam Armenta Vasquez. So it's taking from Mojaloop during the lookup the name of the person.
Did it work?
It worked.
No.
No.
Not yet.
It worked.
Let's first
It
verify.
Wow.
Wait.
Well,
No. Wait. Let's go, not so quickly. Let's verify it worked. I mean, come on. Can we see first, the Rafiki admin? I need to make sure it worked. Okay, oh, is that right now? What time is it? What's the amount? Okay, 989. Completed. Very nice. Okay, so it says expired because when you're sending Rafiki money and you're indicating the sending amount, there can be a fluctuability or a flexibility in the amount that is incoming. So it will be expired. It doesn't mean it didn't work, as we know. It means that the time expired and the amount is fully completed. That's what we have completed. Okay, can we check in the CNP? Can we show them the CNP?
Well,
because we need a dashboard
put us under
for the
the bus,
CNP.
so let's go.
So this is the dashboard for the CNP. What you have up there is the logo of PCH. And we created this dashboard where you can actually see all the remittances. That's us all the night, trying. It worked, so 83 times. And we're searching for this small period. Last hour, last day, okay. Okay. So Diser Hassam Armenta, total remittances for. Here's the last one, $50, 27. Okay, it worked. But Mexican regulators are they're really hard. They want us to do a report. It has to be in PDF. It has to have a series of information that we don't really like, but it has to be there. Can we produce a report of that? Okay, so this is in Spanish because it's already for the Mexican regulator, right? So that's today. Okay. And there we have. So that report we just downloaded, and just so you know, this was done manually until now by the money transmitter, and that was taking hours of verifying everything. Now it's done with one click. It's simple, and it's implementing Rafiki and Mojaloop, as you can see. So it's nice, but can we go to Mojaloop? Because all these, you can say it's Rafiki and the CNP.
Christmas, Roberto. Just go on. keep going.
Okay, so that's Mojaloop, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Wow.
989 pesos to SMB Huatusco. It's a wonderful community bank. I really wish to go there once. We can go together if you're nice. Sounds really nice. Okay, but let's do a final thing, guys.
Wait. Have you noticed that message that is on the right side?
Yes?
What is that? Was that just sent when the transfer was received?
Oh, so there's a WhatsApp notification for the final user?
I think so.
It's very nice.
What does it say?
Okay, it says you received 989 pesos from ILP Interledger Test Dev. So, why are we doing that? It's not because we like WhatsApp. It's because everyone uses WhatsApp in rural areas, while not everybody has an app. Now, we're speaking of 140 community banks which do not have an app currently. Our market is much larger because there are saving co-ops, there's community banks, there's regional banks, sure. But we're speaking of the most underrepresented regions, indigenous regions, women who have been working alone for decades because their husbands are working in the US and who have their account with their savings, right? We want to empower those people. So we thought, why don't we create a generic app? And let's try it with WhatsApp. So what we're doing is we're using WhatsApp with a 3PPI interface, which is an acronym for Third-Party Payment Initiation, right? And so people can onboard, can then speak to the WhatsApp, right? Authenticate, of course, with biometrics. We'll see maybe in a moment if we're lucky. And they can do transfers, they can check balance, they can receive notifications. So basically, these 140 community banks representing more than 200,000 people will not need to have their own app. They can do everything with WhatsApp. We should be paid by WhatsApp. Guys, have you thought of it? Okay, so can we check balance?
Yes.
So Hassam from PCH, coming all straight from Oaxaca, Mexico, is going to show us how it works. You can see the screen over there. So you receive an OTP. In this case, we hard-coded the OTP because we were afraid it would not work in South Africa. We realized it would, but no need to. It's a simple thing. We choose the language, right? In this case, it's going to Zapotec, Mixtec, Triqui. Those are indigenous languages from the regions we're working with. But in this case, we're going to do it in Spanish because there's no English, right? Yeah, okay. So, hi, these are Hassam. So what do you want to do? You want to check your balance, right? You want to check that the remittance really came into your account. So what you do, to keep it simple, instead of going into another UI, we did biometric onboarding. So that's voice authentication, right?
Yes.
Can you? Okay.
No.
No.
That's not working, unfortunately. I'm sorry. It was working this morning, it's not working now. Maybe we can do another demo in an hour.
Okay.
It's not flaky, just...
Okay, then let's finish. Well, you get the idea. Okay, can we finish the presentation? I don't know if there's anything else to say. There's a couple of things in the presentation that we should be showing.
So can we give a round of applause to these guys?
It's good. We need to change to the other computer very, very quickly. Okay, we're almost done. I think we're a bit over time, but we're finishing in like 5 minutes more, at the most.
Or 10.
Okay, so...
Wait, it's not yet there.
Right, so there had to be a demo. If you want to try, we don't have time to do it together, but you can try right away, and we can check the dashboard, like offline, offline I mean out of the session. We'll show you the dashboard of the CNP. All the transfers that you'll do will go straight to those persons, so those people. So those are real numbers from people of the team, representing 2 community banks, 2 core banking systems. Just so you know, right now we have integrated 2 core banking systems. One is almost finished, one is halfway through, one is perfectly done. The perfectly done one is ISIS, our core banking system. The other one is MIFOS, yes, MIFOS. And the third one is Cinefi, which is used by 25 entities in Mexico, representing 500,000 people. Okay, very quickly, some changes we propose for Rafiki for this to happen quickly and well. Actionable incoming payments. What that means is we are, it's okay, 3 minutes? Okay. Actionable incoming payments, we are requesting when that payments, right? Before an incoming payment is created and sent back, to the sending Rafiki, that we are able to check things and then proceed, right? Like allow it to stop. That was important because we needed to do the lookup. Now validate that the account exists and that it's a valid account that can receive funds. So that's actionable incoming payments. It's very useful. It's completed. Also, completed payment final status updates. That's a long word. Simply what we're saying by that is that Rafiki works for Rafiki, right? So once it's completed, it says completed, and that's all it should say. Well, we added another completed, really completed, which means it was also completed on the Mojaloop side so that we can manage things easier. That's a small thing. We created the admin UI. We have the fee services we would love to show you, but we don't have time. And on Mojaloop, there were many changes. Pedro?
Many changes. Lots of good stuff that's coming out. We've been working on logging and auditing using, instead of JSON inside the switch, using protocol buffers, which is a bit more efficient. And again, this is an internal thing. But the point of this optimization, which might seem trivial, is that there's a lot of logging and auditing messages going around inside the cluster, and we need to decrease everything that we can decrease in terms of computing, network, and latency. So this is an effort to get there. We're also working on the certificate management service, which is done. And we can now onboard a participant by creating keys, key pairs, and certificates, for which we have the full certificate signing request flow. where we have a certificate authority in the switch that can issue the CA key and an intermediate key, and the onboarding process begins with a participant sending the certificate to the switch for it to be signed. Then we get back a signed certificate. That certificate is going to be later used for authentication, for message signing, for all sorts of things. And again, we have a complete certificate management service that allows us to do proper security with certificates. And there's more. And this is all in the admin UI. So you don't have to use Postman. You don't have to use strange things that developers like, but people don't. You can actually use a UI to do this.
Developers are people.
I am a developer. I know how developers are. And there's the PISP POC that Roberto was mentioning you about. And we also have a very exciting thing. We have the beginnings of a participant portal. And what this means is that our community banks will be able to log in to the Switch admin UI with their own view of the world. So they will be able to see everything that they need to see, which is filtered in a secure manner with role-based authorization.
So, in one image to close this long talk, we're very sorry. They forced us, as you saw. So, we show this, we discussed this on top, and then this is what we sort of went very quickly through, right? The CNP admin, you saw the dashboard, CNP fee service, why we need it and why it's useful, we can discuss outside. The 3PPI model, which goes with the switch and then connects through gRPC to the WhatsApp API, with which we do voice authentication, which has been provided by ID R&D. It's a very good service. And service onboarding, which means that clients do not suddenly get a WhatsApp. They have to onboard. Even if they are already onboarded with an account, they have to onboard to this digital service. So we made it all in a flow that is very simple, it's compliant, so it's practically ready to go to the market, and it's very funny. So if you want to make any donations, no, I'm joking. This is our website. Okay, so if you want to see a little bit more about what we're doing, thanks so much to everyone who has been so supportive in the ILF community, in the Mojaloop community, amazing people all around, and congratulations to all the team. One last comment, because we're closing, and it's the following. Somebody mentioned the ivory tower, right? I don't know who it was. And said, whoa, you're speaking of Mojaloop, you're speaking of ILF, but where are the real implementations? I can assure you this is real, and this is going to be in the market very soon. So follow us, this is what has to work. It has to work because it's for the right people, and it's the right technology. So let's enjoy it, and don't worry, it's going to come. Okay, thanks so much for taking time.